Om Sarvadharmastapakastam Sarvadharmaswarupakaha Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. We are studying the second part of Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, called the Sadhak Bhav. And today, by Thakur's grace, we may be able to finish it. And we are reading the appendix actually, and we read about his mother. Yesterday we read about Shambhu Malik and his wife, who were devoted to Thakur and Uma both. And Shambhu used to call Thakur as Guruji. Thakur never liked it. We told him not to do so, but he continued. And Shambhu's wife used to take Holy Mother to her house on every auspicious Tuesday. Every Tuesday is auspicious for Mother's worship, and worship her as the Devi with 16 articles, after which Holy Mother used to come back and do all the works of service. And Shambhu saw that Holy Mother lives in a very small place, so he built a room for her adjoining Dakshineshwar garden, and Captain Vishwanath Upadhyay, the Nepal officer, sends logs of wood. If one wood was carried away, he sent another. And Holy Mother stayed in that room for about a year. And from there, she used to bring the cooked food, feed Thakur, and go back. And now and then, or every day, Thakur used to go there for a little time. And one day when he went there, there was so much rain that he could not come back, and he spent the night there. So all these things were read, and after that, Thakur's mother got ill, and the maid servant, when she got up in the morning, she tried to wake her up, but she did not wake up. And then it was forced open, and a peculiar sound was coming from her throat, and she could not be revived. And she was taken to the Ganges, and she was in that condition for 3 days, and then passed away. And Thakur, as a sannyasi, did not do anything. He asked Ramlal to do everything, and he wanted to do tarpan, and that also he could not do, and Garita Karma Avastha was demonstrated or proved by him. After this we read, and then came Keshav. And today we like to go back and start from Keshav again, so that we get the proper connection. So we are back to para 15. Though we read up to para 18 yesterday, we are going back to 15. An important event took place. The master went to see Keshav Babu. An important event took place in the master's life by the will of the Divine Mother a year before his mother passed away. In 1875, there arose a desire in the master's mind to meet Keshav Chandra Sen, the leader of the Brahma Samaj of India. This I did not pay attention yesterday. Brahma Samaj of India. I told that Brahma Samaj was started by Raja Rammohn Roy, and the next chief was Devendranath Tagore, and then Keshav Sen. Now Keshav Sen, under the influence of Thakur or under his natural instincts, so much Indianized that Brahma Samaj appeared to be an alien. And so it was called Bharatavarshiya Brahma Samaj of India. And after some people broke away from him and they called their things as General Brahma Samaj, Sadhana Brahma Samaj. So, and Devendranath's Brahma Samaj was called Adi Samaj. So in that context, the leader of the Brahma Samaj of India. While the master was in ecstasy, he received the direction of the Universal Mother in this matter, and knowing that Keshav with it, so the Divine Mother told him that you must go to Keshav, for through Keshav all his Western educated disciples were to come. So, and knowing that Keshav with his disciples was then engaged in spiritual practice at Jayagopal Sen's garden house in Bulgaria, a few miles to the north of Calcutta, actually near Calcutta airport. He went there with Hriday, from whom was this information. So all this narration is from Hriday. In Captain Vishwanath's carriage, and reached there at about 1 p.m. The master wore that day a piece of red border cloth. The lower extremity of its front, tucked in folds, was thrown up over his left shoulder and it was swinging behind his back. Full details from Hriday. Keshav in the garden at Bulgaria. Hriday got down from the carriage and saw Keshav and his followers sitting on the ghat of the garden pond. Coming up to him, he informed Keshav, my maternal uncle is a great lover of God and likes to hear talks and songs on Hari. Listening to them, he gets inspired and enters into ecstasy. He has heard that you are a great devotee of God and has come here to listen to the talks on divine glory from you. If you kindly agree, I shall bring him here. Keshav gave his assent. Hriday helped the master in alighting from the carriage and accompanied him. Keshav and others were till then very anxious to see him, hearing all that from Hriday and otherwise. But when they saw him, their eagerness cooled down and he was taken to be an ordinary man from his dress we have just described. His first talk with Keshav. The master came to Keshav and said, is it true, gentlemen, that you all have the vision of God? I have a desire to know the nature of that vision. That is what Thakur used to ask everybody. That is why I have come to you. In that way, the topic of God was taken up. We cannot say about what Keshav said in answer to the master's words. Hriday does not remember that. But the master, we were told by Hriday, sang the famous song of Ram Prasad. So during the conversation, the beginning conversation, Hriday does not remember, but it led to master singing the Ram Prasad song. Who knows her mind, how Kali is? She cannot be seen by the study of the six darshanas. That we saw yesterday, the six darshanas, and she cannot be known. And immediately entered into samadhi. Seeing that description, he entered into samadhi. When they saw that state of ecstasy of the master, Keshav and others did not regard it as a high spiritual state even then. They thought that it was mere feigning or was due to a derangement of the brain, just like other people. With a view to bringing him back to normal consciousness, Hriday now began uttering the pranava into his ears. At this, his face brightened up with a sweet smile. Thus, regaining partial consciousness, the master now went on explaining profound spiritual matters in so simple a language with the help of common example that all were charmed and sat looking steadfastly at his face. So, the semi-conscious state in which he talked with them, then only they recognized it. Nobody noticed that the time for bath and meal was long past, and imperceptibly the hour for the next prayer was almost come. Seeing that mood of theirs, the master said, so they were totally absorbed. If any other animal comes to a herd of cattle, they go forward to gore it. But if a cow comes, they lick its body and it is theirs. Our case is just the same today. He then addressed Keshav, so he identified. He then addressed Keshav and said, your tail has dropped off. Unable to understand its meaning, the followers of Keshav looked annoyed. When the master charmed them all by explaining its significance to them, look here, said he, as long as the tadpole has its tail, it lives only in water and cannot come up on land. But when the tail drops off, it can live on land as well as in water. Even so, as long as a man has the tail of ignorance, he can live in the water of the world only. That is the water of the world. But when that tail falls off, he can as freely move about in the world as in existence called knowledge bliss. So they are Brahma people. So he talks of, instead of saying God, he talks of Satchidananda Brahma. And this dropping of ignorance in Keshav's case is not complete, we will see, but he has started getting the experience of God. Your mind, O Keshav, has now attained that state in which you can live in the world as also in existence, knowledge, bliss. The master spent a long time discussing various topics like this and came back to Dakshineshwar that day. Now what happened? The intimate relation between master and Keshav. So this was enough for Keshav to be attracted. Keshav's mind was so much attracted toward the master since he saw him first that from now on, till his passing away, he deemed it an honor and a privilege to meet him and enjoy his divine company very often. He would either come himself to the Dakshineshwar temple or take the master now and then to his Kamal Kutir, the lily cottage, Keshav's house. Kamal Kutir residence at Calcutta. The relation between the master and Keshav deepened so much that both of them felt a great want if they did not see each other even for a few days. Keshav hankering after spirituality and finding it in Thakur, and Thakur becoming eager to spread his message, found some people who could appreciate it to some extent. At such time, the master used to go to Keshav in Calcutta, or the latter would come to the former at Dakshineshwar. Besides, Keshav considered it to be a part of the annual festival of the Brahma Samaj to come with his companions to the master, that is the annual function, or take him to them and spend a day with him in divine conversations. Many were the occasions other than this. When he with his followers came to Dakshineshwar in a steamer, singing this glory of God, had the master brought up into it and took a trip on the Ganga, all the while listening to his ambrosial teaching. Up to that we had read. We continue now. Para 19. How Keshav behaved at Dakshineshwar when he used to come to the master. Remembering the scriptural injunctions, Keshav never came empty-handed to Dakshineshwar. What did the scripture say? When you go to a sadhu, you must give him something as a token of your offering. So this Keshav knew and he did like that. Whenever he came, he brought with him some fruits and placed them before the master, and like a devoted follower, sat at his feet and conversed with him. So he took up the position of a disciple or a devotee. At one time, the master said to him by way of a joke, Keshav, you charm so many people by your lectures. Say something to me. By way of a joke. Keshav replied humbly, Sir, am I to come to a blacksmith's shop to sell needles? That is, am I to carry coal to Newcastle? That is the English equivalent. Newcastle is the place of coal mines, so one does not carry coal there. Please say something yourself and let me listen. So he understood that master just wants to start the conversation. And from this, Keshav's attitude becomes very clear. He is conversing. He is not trying to teach Thakur something. People are charmed as soon as I tell them a few words of yours. So Thakur said, you give lectures. That he explains that what you said, a little word of that I speak, and people are charmed. So you tell, first answer, I am not carrying needle to the blacksmith shop. Second, what you talk, so you talk, I want to listen. Thirdly, from what I gather from you, I talk in my lectures and people are charmed. So I am the carrier of your message. And this Thakur knew well. The master explained to Keshav, Brahman and his power are one and the same. The three, divine world, devotee and divine lord are one and the one is the three. Two different things. Now he's trying to bring these Nirakar Nirgun Vadis into the realm of Sagun Sakar. So one day the master explained, so that Saradananda Swamiji jumps on that point. One day the master explained to Keshav at Dakshineshwar that if one accepted the existence of Brahman, one had similarly to accept the existence of the power of Brahman. What is the power of Brahman? To appear as the world through names and form. This is the power of Brahman. Brahman naturally appears as the world through the medium of names and forms. The world is changing forms and names make them appear real, and this neither name is something real, it is only a sound, and forms are ever changing, they are also not real. But through these two mediums, Brahman appears as the world. So Brahman has a power, we say, to appear as this world through these two means. First thing. And that Brahman and its power were eternally one and the same. So he gives the example of fire and its burning power. So Brahman is naturally has this power. It is not that there is something Brahman and there is something power. Brahman naturally appears through names and forms as this world. So this power is very natural in Brahman. That the Nirakarvadis, Nirgunvadis, harping only on the transcendental aspect of Brahman, they do not know. So Thakur is teaching them that we are worshipping. They did not know even fully the Nirgun Brahma, but Nirakar Brahma. So Thakur is telling them that Nirakar Nirgun Brahma also is Sagun Sakar Ishwar. That is the main point. So that power is not two things. When we hear Brahman and power, then there are not two realities or one and a half reality as some people imagine. Brahman naturally appears like this. So Brahman and its power are identical. We call it Brahman when we think that it is not changing. We call it that power when we think that Brahman is making the world. So this he taught. This was beyond their scope at that time. Keshav accepted it. So Keshav understood and accepted. The master then told him that like Brahman and its power, the three entities, namely the divine words, that means the scriptures are divine words. The devotee for whom they are meant and the divine Lord are non-separate. Bhagavad Bhakta Bhagavan. So the Bhagavad represents all the scriptures, which are nothing but come from God Himself. And God and the sadhak who is worshipping God with the help of the scriptures. So these three are appearances of one Ishvara. So that is Thakur's beauty, that he is telling these three are not separately real. They are all one appearing as three, and three are actually become one in the substance. Because the scriptures talk of Chaitanya God, and the God is Chaitanya. They are non-separate. In other words, eternally identical. Tine ek, eke teen. This last sentence, that in other words, eternally identical, they are three in one, one in three. One appears as three. The three, namely the scripture, the devotee, and the divine Lord are one, and the one is the three. देखो the Bengali तीन पदार्थ अभिन्न व नित्य युक्त, okay, identical or eternally connected. Okay, this much, huh? Keshav understood and accepted this too. Now, next step. The master went on to say that the three, namely the Guru, Krishna, and the devotee, are one and one in the three. So he is bringing them to the idea of the Vaishnavas. Guru, Krishna, and Vaishnava, they are same. Now, Brahmas do not accept Guru. Brahman do not accept avatars. Brahmos do not accept this, that bhaktas are special. Which he was then going to explain to him. Now I shall explain to you, he stated, and I shall explain to you. Keshav mused a little, we do not know what thoughts passed through his mind, and said with humility, Sir, I cannot accept now more than what you have said already. Why? It is therefore needless to raise this topic at present. That means they will be called then Hindus, regular Hindus. The separateness of Brahma Samaj will go away. So Keshav could not accept it on two counts. He could not accept the theory which he later on accepted. And he could not accept it from Brahma Samaj point of view, then the speciality of Brahma Samaj will go away. The master said, that's all right, let us stop here. He understood that he wants to maintain that Brahma Samaj. And it is not easy to accept this for Nirakar Nirgun people. The mind of Keshav, which had been inspired with the Western ideas and ideals, had thus received much light from the divine company of the Master, and understanding day after day the mystery of the Vedic religion, plunged in sadhana. So, another important thing is Western influence. And so it was difficult to accept this. But Bhagavad Bhakta Bhagwan, all right, but Guru Krishna Vaishnava will not fit in the Western mode. But he is appreciating the truth receiving from Thakur. So, understanding day after day the mystery of the Vedic religion. So, they are this Brahma people. One thing is Vedic religion. Second thing is sadhana is the main part of religion. Otherwise, they used to lecture, intellectually discuss, and think of social activities. And they used to say, let us meditate, and for 5 minutes they used to meditate. But coming in contact with Thakur, Keshav saw light, what is spirituality, what is religion, and he understood the Vedic religion's points, and main point is that he started giving emphasis to sadhana in his own life. That is the main point. Plunged in sadhana. This is evident to us because his religious opinion gradually underwent a change as he came into close contact with the Master. Gradually, more and more, Thakur's ideas were accepted by Keshav. Now comes an important event in Keshav's life. The Kuch Bihar marriage took place in 1878. So 1875, Master met him, and then he was changing gradually. And that point, a big event happened. What happened? Kuch Bihar marriage. The human mind, what is Kuch Bihar marriage? Keshav had a daughter. And they, indulging in social things, made a rule that one should not marry one's daughter or sister below a particular age. Now that thing is all right. But in those days, the main point of father is to see that he gets a proper husband for the daughter. There was not at all this idea of really girls moving and finding boys and boys moving and finding girls. That idea was not there in India. So the main thing is for the parents to find a proper husband for the daughters. And he found the most suitable husband. And so he married his daughter below that age which they have themselves decided. And that gave a shock to his followers. The history is like that. We have seen it sometime. That Keshav is drifting toward the Indian ideals. And the Samaj is moving by Keshav's whims. So his other followers said that let us make some rules. And so these rules were made. And Keshav himself made the rules and Keshav himself broke the rules. So many of his followers went against him and divided into another group. That is the thing. So now this was a shock to Keshav that most of his followers, devoted followers, went against him, started calling him names and became separate. So that was a big shock. The Kuch Bihar marriage took place in 1878. Wounded by its repercussion, Keshav attained spiritual depth. So he went deeper into his own personality. He went deeper with his sadhana because the social aspect gave all this trouble. The master's opinion on the marriage. And master said Keshav has done the right thing. So he got support from the master. The human mind, unless grievously wounded, does not feel like detaching itself from the world and realizing God as its all. So, a shock is required in everybody's life. Keshav got a shock when he gave away his daughter in marriage to the prince of Kuch Bihar about 3 years after he had become acquainted with the master. This marriage produced a great commotion in the Brahma Samaj of India and split it in two. The party opposed to Keshav separated themselves from the society and formed a new one called the General Brahma Samaj. The master at Dakshineshwar was much shocked to hear of that quarrel between the two parties over a petty matter. So this was not important in Thakur's mind because it is social. Hearing of the rule of the Brahma Samaj about the marriageable age of girls, the master said, birth, death, and marriage are things entirely under the will of God. They cannot be brought under hard and fast rules. Now, are there any rules now? Why did Keshav set about to fix that? So the fixing of rules was wrong. Breaking the rules is not wrong because the rules were wrong. If anyone raised the topic of the Kuch Bihar marriage and condemned Keshav, in the presence of the master, he used to say, how is Keshav to blame for doing that? He is a man with a family. Why should he not do what is good for his sons and daughters? What is there to be condemned when a man having the responsibility of a family on his shoulders does this without deviating from the path of virtue? That means his spirituality, religion is continuing. From that he is not deviating. But this is a common matter, the responsibility of the father. Keshav in no way acted contrary to religion or morality. So he says religion does not have anything to do with this marriageable. It's a social something. He has rather discharged the duty of a father. Viewing it thus from the standpoint of the duties of a householder, the master always supported Keshav's action as not in any way blameworthy. However, there is no doubt that this blow dealt by the incident of the Kuchbihar marriage turned Keshav's mind more inward and led it more rapidly around the path of spirituality, because otherwise it was hindered by the social matters. Keshav could not fully grasp the ideas and ideals of the master. So that is the point. Keshav could not fully grasp his ideas, but approximately grasped many. And through him, his devotees came. He honored the master, but could not accept the ideal. So according to whatever he accepted, he thought, according to that, master was perfect. So that he appreciated. Although he was dearly loved by the master and had many opportunities to see and hear him, it is doubtful whether Keshav, inspired with Western ideas and ideals as he was, understood him perfectly. For on the one hand, he looked upon the master as a living embodiment of spirituality. He personally took him to his house, showed him round the places where he went to bed, where he ate, where he sat, and where he reflected on the good of the Samaj. That means Thakur's touch or sight will make it holy. Asked him to bless him so that his mind might not forget God and think of worldly objects in any one of these places, and taking him to the place where he meditated on God, offered flowers at his lotus feet. This we heard it from Vijay Krishna Goswami. Vijay Krishna Goswami was one of the disciples who broke away from Keshav, and he himself became more influenced by Thakur later on. So he has seen that Keshav worshipped Thakur with flowers. When he came to Dakshineshwar, he was seen by many of us to salute the master uttering victory to the new dispensation. So, understanding Thakur as much as he can, he said his religion has changed, and from that Bharatvarshiya Brahma Samaj, a new thing has come, new dispensation. And Thakur is the Navavidhan in Bengali. And that Navavidhan is Murtiman in Thakur. So according to his concept of Thakur, he is the ideal according to his ideas. The new dispensation and the master's opinion. So he is now explaining what is that new dispensation. On the one hand, he was unable to accept fully the master saying all religions are true. When we thought that Krishna Vaishnava did not accept, and Thakur said all faiths are paths, that he did not accept. And he tried to found a new faith, that is the point. Mixing so many faiths and compromising so many ideals, not that all religions as they are true, but he found a new religion. the new dispensation, by picking out what appeared to him to be the essentials of what appeared to him to be essentials of all religions and rejecting what seemed non-essentials in them. This is called eclecticism. Now this religion is formed by you, your religion. You have decided which is good and which is bad. So that is not harmony as preached by Thakur. As this faith came into existence shortly after Keshav's acquaintance with the Master, it is probable that it was a partial acceptance and propagation of the Master's final conclusion regarding the true nature of all religion. So, little of it he has accepted and understood. Okay. The intricate, now the most important point Saradananda is telling. Most important, the conclusion of Sadik Bab and Thakur's personality and why we call him Yugavatar. The intricate national problem of India has been solved by the Master alone. When the powerful waves of Western education and civilization came to India and began to bring about a radical change in the attitude towards ancient knowledge of Brahman and the manners and customs of society, everything drastically getting changed. Every talented man of this country tried to find out a harmony between the culture and civilization of the East and those of the West. That is what they are trying. Just as in the province of Bengal, Ramon Rai, Maharishi Devendranath, Brahmananda Keshav, and others sacrificed their lives for that purpose. Even so, in other places of the country, many great souls are known to have appeared and carried on this same work, mixing up. But none of them could perfectly tackle it before the advent of the Master. They accepted something of the foreigners, they rejected something of their religion, and like that they saved India. Historically important. The Master duly performed the disciplines of all the religions of India. So Master accepted all the religions as they taught, the operative part. And he practiced himself. And then came to this conclusion that so many faiths, so many paths. And he knew the essentials of Islam and Christianity also. In his own life, and getting the proper result in each of them showed that the religion of his country was not the cause of its degradation and that cause must be sought elsewhere. He showed also that society, manners, customs, in short, the culture and civilization of India had as their basis religion, which had brought glory and prosperity to this country in the past, that the same life-giving religion still exists in full, and that we could again successfully pilot our national ship if only we could base all our efforts and endeavors on religion and on nothing else. So you can read Swamiji's lectures on Indian culture during his Colombo to Almora, and you will find this emphasized that what is the speciality of India? Spirituality. What is the aim of life according to India? Realization of God. What is all the society and other rules made of according to the spiritual progress? That is the main thing. And that in his own life, Thakur showed fully. And both sannyasi and householders' ideals he showed. So the whole structure has to be based upon religion and on nothing else. Living the ideal life himself, the master showed further how religion could broaden the outlook of man. If you practice, then you understand that all religions are true. So that broadens your mind. Next, it transmitted the liberalizing power of that religion to his disciples. So he made all his disciples filled with that idea, especially to Swami Vivekananda, who were till then inspired by the Western ideas and ideals, taught them how to perform all actions in the world as ancillary to religion. Hmm. And thus gave a wonderful solution for the above mentioned intricate problem of India. Just as by gaining of the ultimate results of all the faiths of the world through their respective practices, he has pointed out how to remove all differences in the spiritual realm all over the world. Even so, by being perfect in all the faiths of India through their orthodox methods, he has silenced all wranglings about the religion of the land and has shown us on what basis our nationality has all along stood and shall stand. Now, the modern people, some of the mad people, totally influenced by the Western ideas, they think that religion is at fault. And Swamiji has said, seeing Thakur, religion is the backbone. And if you give up religion, you are dying. Your society and culture will get finished. But if you stand on your religion, then all the things will come around. The Britishers said you had no nation. And that is what people even today think, that nationalism was created with the Britishers. No, nationalism is not a political entity at all. Saradananda Swamiji, we'll read that later on. Saradananda Swamiji tells us, Guru, Ganga, Gayatri, all Hindus from Himalaya to Kanyakumari every day accept. From Guwahati to Porbandar, everybody accepts. That is our nationalism. And the highest punya, how can a man get? By going to Vishwanath Shiva in Kashi, taking the Ganges water from Kashi, traveling all the up to south in Rameshwaram, and put that water on the Abhishekam for Shiva, and if possible carry sand from there and bring it back to Kashi. So we were a nation. So many respects you will find that our throughout land there may have been various differences, but there are a lot of common bonds. And the other day I read it to the credit of Shankaracharya that he saw, Rameshwaram has in the Tamil Nadu, and it has three different priest families working there. One is from Tamil Nadu, one is from some other state, and one is from Maharashtra. And similarly, in many temples, he brought priests from a particular state to the other state. So we talk of integration. This is what Shankar had done. So India was a nation all the time. Nationality is not one political power throughout India. That is not nationality. That is a political nation. and India being a spiritual nation. And this Thakur demonstrated in his life. That if you stick to spirituality, if you stick to relation of God as your ideal, then you'll find India is the ideal country. And we all stand united there. The master's reaction to Keshav's death. So, even though Keshav failed to understand the full implication of the master's ideals, the master had a wonderful love for him, which we could understand from his reaction to Keshav's death in 1884. So 9 years at the association. The master said, I could not leave my bed for 3 days when I got their news. It seemed as if a limb of mine was paralyzed. That means Keshav was a part of his Leela personality. Now that topic is over, but we are still to Keshav's topic is over. And how Thakur and Keshav were related, that is very clear. And how Thakur loved Keshav, that is very clear. Now, some other incident before that, Thakur meeting the Western educated people. So up to that we have to go. So the master saw Gauranga in Sankirtan. We shall bring this appendix to a close by mentioning another event which happened when he met Keshav for the first time. Simultaneously, not connected with Keshav. The master then had a desire to witness the all-bewitching peripatetic Sankirtan of Shri. Peripatetic means with chanting of God's name, they used to take yatras throughout the city. That is that peripatetic. The Divine Mother fulfilled that desire of his by showing it to him in the way described below. Standing outside his room, he saw wonderful waves of Sankirtan coming towards him from the direction of the Panchavati, proceeding toward the main gate of the Dakshineshwar garden and disappearing behind the trees. He witnessed that, absorbed in the love of God, Gauranga, the moon of the Navadvip, was proceeding with a slow gait in the center with Nityananda and Advaita, the main associates of Chaitanya, on either side, surrounded by dense multitude. They were all in a state of spiritual inebriation produced by God love, some expressing the bliss of their hearts by losing control over themselves, and others by wild ecstatic dances. The crowd was so great that it looked as if there was no end to the number of people there. So this Thakur saw a few faces in that wonderful Sankirtan got impressed on the canvas of the master's memory in bright colors. When he saw them coming as his devotees shortly after he had that vision, the master arrived at the certain conclusion that they had been the companions of Chaitanya in their previous life. Balram Basu, Master Masha and all of them. Shortly after he had had that vision, the master went to Kamarpukur and to Hriday's another event. The master went to Kamarpukur and to Hriday's native village, Shiod. Fully Shambhadar is situated a few miles away from the latter place. Hearing that there were many Vaishnavas there who filled the place with the bliss of Sankirtan every day, he had a desire to go there and listen to it. The village of Belte stood near Shambhadar, that fully Shambhadar. Natavar Goswami of that village had met the master before and invited him to sanctify his house where with the dust of his feet. So automatically that opportunity came. Accompanied by Hriday, the master went to his house, lived there for 7 days, and enjoyed the bliss of Sankirtan with the Vaishnavas of Shambhadar. Being acquainted with the master, Ishan Chandra Malik of that place invited him with great respect to his house to share the bliss of Sankirtan there. The Vaishnavas were much attracted towards him to see his wonderful moods during Sankirtan. The news of his wonderful moods spread all around, not only in Shambhadar, but also in Ramjivanpur, Krishnaganj, and other villages far and near. Then came from those villages parties of Sankirtan with a view to enjoying divine bliss with him. That made the village very much crowded, and Sankirtan went on night and day. There was then the general talk that there had come a devotee of God who died and revived many times a day. So that is what people thought. That Thakur enters into Samadhi and comes back. They say he dies and comes, is revived again every day, several times. People forgot food and sleep and anxious to see him, climbed up trees and got on the roofs of houses. Thus for 3 days and nights there in the other place. There flowed a tide of celestial bliss there. People became mad as it were to see the master and to touch his feet. And the master had no time to take his bath or meal. Hriday afterwards fled secretly with him to Shiva. So without people's knowledge, Hriday took him to his village. Then only that broke. When that mart of joy came to an end, Ishan Chaudhary, Natwar Goswami, Ishan Malik, Srinath Malik, and others of the village of Shambhadar and their descendants mention that even today and cherish great love and respect for him. So in any sampradaya, he is teaching Brahmas like that, in the Vaishnavas he is mixing like that, any sampradaya is his own. The master also became acquainted with Rai Charan Das, the famous khol player of Krishnaganj. Khol is like pakpaj or mridangam. It is made of clay. Mridangam also is made of clay. Mrud is the body. Mrud means clay. So there was famous khol player of Krishnaganj, Raicharan Das. As soon as he played on that khol, the master would go into ecstasy. We were told of the above mentioned event partly by the master and partly by Hriday. We have been able to ascertain its date in the following way. When that happened, a great devotee of the master, Mahendranath Pal, the physician of Alamadar, met the master after Keshav Babu had had the privilege of meeting him in 1875. He said to us that the master had returned only a short time before from Sihor, where he went to see him for the first time. So that man saw him, Thakur in Sihor, and Thakur had just come to Sihor from that foolish Shambhadar. That day the master told him of the aforesaid happening at foolish Shambhadar. So from that they have determined the year and time. Swami, now next topic. Swami Yogananda's house was situated within a short distance of Dakshineshwar temple. So he came to Thakur in very young age. So leaving aside his case, we may note that the chosen devotees of the master started coming to him from 1879. Swami Vivekananda came to him in 1881 and Jagdamba Dasi also died in 1881. Hriday fully, now another event happened. Hriday foolishly worshipped during this time the feet of Mathur Babu's granddaughter of very tender age. about 6 months afterwards, after Jagdamba's death. Her father, Trailokya, apprehending that evil might befall the child, Hridaya is a Brahmin, and that small girl is from the fishermen, and Hridaya worships it. It may be bad for her. A higher caste man, higher cultured man doing something to the lower culture may bring harm to that person. And dismiss Hridaya from the service of the Kali temple. So, exit Hridaya before all the disciples, inner disciples came. That is the main thing in God's dispensation. Saradan Swami and others went on asking Hridaya about all those things because they knew he served the master. Dismiss Hridaya from the service of the Kali temple. So the event under discussion must have taken place sometime in or before 1879. They're discussing about the same foolish Ambadar that before 1879 because Hridaya was dismissed in 1879. So it is before that. Here ends the sadhaka bhav. From tomorrow, the first part named the previous historic background and early life we take up from tomorrow. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakastam Sarvadharma Swarupakah Acharyana Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.